This is part one of a two-part podcast.
There is a YouTube channel called Suburban Biology. The guy on that channel built a rocket mass heater that is a copy of the one I have in Cooper Cabin. He videoed his build, and this guy clearly has videographer chops. The video quality is far better than anything I've made, and that video now has something like 3 million views. Progress! Last March, this guy came here and interviewed me. He has given me permission to strip the audio out and feed it to you all as a podcast. Enjoy!
Today I'm speaking with Paul Wheaton, founder of the world's largest online permaculture forum and community, Permies.com. Paul began his career as a software engineer in the 90s. He created tools like BananaCom, a terminal emulator used by bulletin board system operators in the United States. To lay people like myself, I understand this was like the internet before the internet. Paul is a certified master gardener, permaculture designer, author of Building a Better World in Your Backyard, creator of hundreds of podcasts, videos, and articles, and the lead innovator at Wheaton Labs in Montana. He's been called the Duke of Permaculture by Jeff Lawton and Sepp Holzer. Others have dubbed him the bad boy of permaculture for his direct, no-compromise approach to solving real-world problems through earthworks, rocket mass heaters, hugelkultur, Wofati natural buildings, and ultra-efficient systems that challenge conventional thinking. It was from Permies.com that I first learned about rocket mass heaters. After building my own and posting the video on Suburban Biology, Paul was kind enough to answer many of the questions in my video comments. He was also kind enough to invite me to his intentional community in Montana called Wheaton Labs. Here, I was fortunate to get an in-person glimpse of the fascinating dynamics of an intentional community, as well as the many innovative projects they create on an ongoing basis. Meet Paul Wheaton. They call moments of sudden realization light bulb moments. Can you share with us how your experiments with light bulbs changed the course of your life over 20 years ago?
Like literal light bulbs.
Literal light bulbs.
Literal light bulbs.
CFLs.
Oh, gosh, I hate being the light bulb guy.
You're not anymore. You're the rocket mass heater guy now.
Yeah. So, there was a big push for CFLs a long time ago, and I just didn't like. An incandescent light bulb is a simple, beautiful thing with healthy light coming out of it, and there's just a great light quality, and the funny thing is that since I live in Montana, winter comes when the days get short, so we want light and heat, and it's like people are kind of like, oh, those incandescent light bulbs are so stupid because they only give off 3% light and the rest of it is heat, and by the way, light is radiant heat, one of the most efficient forms of heat. And so it's kind of like those light bulbs are, in the wintertime, they're brilliant, no pun intended. It is the smartest way to light your home. And if you've got baseboard heaters in your home, you'll actually use less electricity overall if you light your home with incandescent light, because it'll be giving you that heat from the radiant heat, and you'll end up turning your household thermostat down. You will use less light. Anyway, this is engineering. I'm an engineer. And people don't want to hear it because the other light bulbs have more light per watt.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if it's a toxic light. It doesn't matter if the device itself is loaded with poisons. Anyway, so that was... It was so frustrating to talk to people about that because, of course, they can't hear it. I'm just a crazy wackadoodle. But I ended up making some videos to prove my points, and I got so much anger from people about that because their politicians told them what to think, and they picked which light bulb, like the different political teams pick their light bulb, and if you support light bulb A, and political team A is like with that light bulb, then you must be part of that political party, which is the bad party, according to political team B, who have light bulb B. So, it was a mess, and I was just trying to lay out the math, and
the sentiment at the time from political team A was probably the claim, or the goal, stated goal at least, of saving energy. What would you say to that? Were they saving energy?
They were not. They were liars.
Can you expand on how?
The big thing is like the same light bulb company came out with two products. They came out with the incandescent bulb, and they came out with the CFL. And basically, the profit margin on the CFL was huge, but people didn't want it. And then, so what they ended up doing, and this is clever on their part, they ended up getting subsidies for it. But they got so much subsidy from so many different places that the amount of money that they made was the bulb was costing them about $12 per bulb to get to our shores, and they were getting like $40 a bulb from all these subsidies, and so they were giving them away for free, and that was part of the whole comedy of the situation, is that your energy company would do an energy audit, which is just a thin facade over, we're going to set you up with so many CFL light bulbs because we get so much money for every light bulb. And so, energy this, energy that, and have some light bulbs. Now you have them, we get paid epic bank.
In my own personal life, most of my friends, colleagues, contacts that self-identify as an environmentalist, they tend to assume that regulation is a good thing, and doing away with regulation will therefore be bad for the environment. Has that been your experience?
I don't know. So I live off-grid in Montana. So you're asking me a question about regulation and laws and, in general, my experience. And if you have a humble home and a giant garden, all of politics becomes very small and far away. And so it doesn't matter anymore. One thing I want to say about the free light bulbs, keep in mind, it's not as if the people from China said, we love you guys in America so much, here's some free light bulbs, love and kisses, China. They didn't do that. There were people making money hand over fist. So much money, such a ridiculous amount of money, of taxpayer money, that they could pay a guy to drive a van full of light bulbs over to your house and try to foist as many as possible on you while snatching away and taking away your incandescent lights. But if you have electric heat and you use light bulbs, incandescent light bulbs wisely, I think I could probably cut a good $500 per year off of your heat bill with those light bulbs. Whereas if you switch to incandescent, if you switch to CFLs or even the new LEDs, then you think you're going to save $40 a winter, $40 a year using those. But I think that if you're using electric heat, I think that you are robbing yourself of like $500 a year.
Right. I've seen videos of you doing that. I believe it was on your YouTube channel. I can't remember if it was YouTube or Permies through a link, but where you have the light bulb set up, the keyboard heaters, the dog bed pad.
Yeah. I did a TED Talk about that.
Well, that may have been it. Okay. I was going to try and direct people to wherever that was. Cause
YouTube.
I think YouTube,
yeah.
okay.
TED Talk. I've got a 3-minute long video at YouTube that's kind of about that. Yeah.
Okay. It was mind expanding, to say the least, you know. Yeah.
It's just math.
Yeah.
You know, engineering.
Sure. Well, speaking of engineering, so you had a previous career as a software engineer, is my understanding. Can you just briefly touch on what was your previous life in software like? I
went to school as just engineering in general, and then eventually specialized in software engineering because I seemed to have a knack for it. And I started off as a coder, programmer, and eventually I did very, very, very well. One time I was between gigs, and I thought all of the gigs I worked on were kind of like I can't share the code because of NDAs and whatnot. It's private stuff. So I can't really show how cool it is what I did. So I thought, I know enough about serial communications. I'll just make some software. And so in a weekend, I wrote some software that does it. And overnight, my software became number one out of 50 competitors. And suddenly, instead of getting a new job, I was self-employed. And I got thrust on the stage, and wow, what a ride. It was so exciting. But okay, I did that, and then I got on the Java bandwagon really, really early. I just felt like I knew like 30 different programming languages at that point, and then I just felt like Java was better than all of them put together. So I went, and then I was in demand. Everybody wanted me to come work for them, and they were going to pay me more than the other guys. And so I was, on top of the world. Everybody wanted to know my opinion. And I made a website to talk about my weird theories in software engineering. I had some different ideas from the norm.
Is that Code Ranch?
And so it started off as Java Ranch, and then eventually we changed it to Code Ranch. So I shared all my weird ideas, and that seemed to just project me even more out there. But I think my career kind of, as I was winding up my career, and I didn't think of it as winding up at the time, but I would be hired to go into a company that was circling the drain and help guide them to being a company again, to being a company that would not be circling the drain. But the last big gig that I had, I used to put in these 80-hour work weeks doing that kind of thing, but I was bit by the permaculture bug, and all I could think about was how permaculture will save the world if only somebody will stand up and carry the permaculture message to the masses. And I couldn't seem to find anybody to do that. And it started to become clear, I guess it has to be me. So I started off with these 80-hour work weeks, but then I was getting to the point where I was so obsessed with permaculture stuff, I was struggling to put in a full 40 hours a week. I was extremely well respected, very good at what I did. And I was helping companies, turn it around and get direction, which, working with big groups of engineers who have their own flavor of crazy to deal with. And I just couldn't take my mind off of horticulture and natural building and alternative energy and all of that stuff. My mind was just constantly in the permaculture world. And that's all I wanted to ever think about or do or whatever. So I quit. And I started Permies.com, and that turned 20 recently.
That's crazy.
And in fact, I think last month, February, we had 21 million people come out to Permies.com. So, I mean, we're infecting a lot of brains. That's fine.
So from a career in software to where you are now, I mean, today's software, more and more of it is being written by artificial intelligence. I heard in a recent talk that you gave, you came under fire just for the mere suspicion that you might have used AI to generate some permaculture cards, images. So why do you think there's so much anger and fear surrounding AI right now?
People are going to lose their jobs. I think that's a good reason to have anger and fear. If they don't have a humble home and a large garden. If they have a giant garden and a humble home, I think you don't have nearly as much fear. But if you're living hand to mouth and you could lose your job, I think you might put up a bit of a fight. We didn't use any AI in the making of the cards. And but what we were getting flooded with people that would say, you're using AI. And I mean, there's videos where I use my voice to like do the voiceover, and apparently my voice sounds like some kind of AI.
It is rather sultry at times, you know.
And so people are like, stop using that AI voice and or whatever. And it's like, it's not AI, it's just me. And I think people have a very legitimate reason to be afraid, especially if they've chosen a path that's very tied to the current system, the current way things are. I mean, I'm not paying much attention to the AI. I'm looking forward to having AI as a tool. I haven't really touched it. I know that some of the people I work with are using it a lot, and more power to them. But I haven't really touched it. I look forward to when there might be a robot that'll, help me with my gardening, and I understand it'll do my laundry and cook me food. And so, but the other thing is this, like right now we've got this old fire truck that we'd like to get operating again because we want to pull a dump trailer so we can move some dirt. And, but it isn't working. And we're struggling to find a mechanic to fix it. But my understanding is that if an AI robot shows up, it'll be able to get it running.
Only a matter of time, year, 10, who knows when, but yeah right. I want to pull on that thread that you said you're looking forward to having help even from a humanoid. I think, if you'll allow me to ramble for just a minute, with many technologies, the early adopters of a technology tend to signal to the company making the technology how this will be used. And then there's this feedback loop when you wind up digging a trench on, well, this is the way that technology is going to evolve because these people are using it for this purpose. This company tries to satisfy them. And then this ruts get set. And so in some ways, the early adopters of a technology will automatically dictate how the technology is used. I find myself a little concerned because I think the people that I would trust the most to steward our future, so permaculturists, people that are into these ecologically friendly things, biophilic things, a lot of them are extremely hesitant and would not use a humanoid robot. But in my mind, I get excited about not necessarily that everything will go well. I'm not saying I'm highly confident this couldn't go wrong. It could. But I get excited about the potential for humanoid labor helping us build earthworks to harvest water, build hugelkultur, build alternative living devices that are better for the planet. Why do you think it's so rare that is it rare? Because to me it seems rare. You're one of the few people that I hold with high regard that seems excited about the potential of humanoid assistance. Do you think that's rare? And if so, why?
Wow. Well, as you can tell, I'm an old dude. I'm a little concerned about what happens when I get older than this. And so, I mean, so many people end up in old folks' homes and stuff like that. But I hope I can keep going. But I kind of feel like I live so far away from hospitals and resources, emergency resources and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, and I don't want to be a burden to anybody. But if there's like, I've already got this idea that, because when I see like some of the robots, they're white, right? And I want to get my own robot and call it Betty. And I'll even get Betty a little apron to wear.
Betty White.
Betty White. Yeah. Yeah. And so, I like the idea that I won't be a burden to anybody. Betty will take care of me. And, in the meantime, I can teach Betty my stuff. It's kind of funny when I do collective things, and I'm visiting with other people that are keen on permaculture. I am constantly reminded about how not only does permaculture deviate from the norm, but my philosophy set about permaculture deviates from the normal philosophy set of permaculture. And so what an odd duck I am. And when people come either to rent a cabin or part of the boot camp or whatever, how there's a big gap between our knowledge sets. These other people have a different way of doing things, and they'll feel, for example, strongly that all gardens must be flat. There's no other way to grow food. It has to be flat. And I try to explain, well, the flat is a side effect of tractors. And so with farming, they have to do flat so they can get the tractors out there so the tractor can do the tractory things. And then they kind of started making gardens flat to reflect that. And some people would even bring a tractor into their garden to do some stuff. And so they needed it to be flat. But if we're going to say we're not going to do a tractor, we don't have to be flat. And in fact, there's advantages to not being flat. And they can't hear it. Everybody knows all gardens are flat. And it's like, okay, let me point out my window. Look at those gardens. They're not flat.
Hugelkultur, yeah.
Yeah, it's covered in food, growing on solid rock.
And if there's a machine capable of plucking it, it would be human or something humanish.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I could tell Betty.
That's right. Get her some golden shoes. Call her the Golden Girl.
Yeah, there you go. Let's go get some food out of the garden and make something tasty.
No.
Yeah.
Well, before fully moving on from your past career, can you tell us what is Bananacom? And from my ignorance, I really don't understand what I read even, but it sounded like the internet before the internet, or a primitive version of the internet.
That is actually pretty accurate.
AI told me that.
Oh, the AI told you that? Okay.
I'm only half serious.
So, before we did things with web browsers, then we would log into services and type, and we would see text, and the interface we would use, instead of it being HTML, it was usually ANSI or VT110 or VT100. And so this was like the protocol, the things that would come through to change the color of the text or whatever. And but the text would be embedded on your screen, but it was generally a text-based screen, not today it's got fonts and it's got pictures and things like that. But before that, it was just plain text. And so Bananacom was communication software, because when I wrote it, that's the thing I was talking about earlier. When I wrote it, I just wanted to demonstrate my abilities with serial communications and that kind of thing. But one of the things that I always found annoying is that the other packages that were out had dozens and dozens of ways to configure it. And if the thing is that it was very easy to configure that software so it couldn't work. And if you ever try to help somebody get online, then it was so difficult. So the one thing I thought I would do is to make it so that this little program that I made could not be configured to not work. So it was always working. You can't screw it up. And immediately what happened is that all these online companies would send Bananacom to all of their users and say, just if you're having any trouble connecting to us, just use this, okay? and so that's how Bananacom became an overnight sensation and just kind of took over the pre-internets. And so, I mean, the internet existed, but it was only for universities at the time. Mm. And you could even use Bananacom to tap into that if you wanted to, but it was a text-only kind of interface.
Put Paul's brain on your plot. Do you have a hunk of land but don't know where to start? Do you have a world-changing permaculture idea and you need some feedback? Do you feel like the guy in overalls may inexplicably hold the keys to all your wildest permaculture and homesteading dreams? Well, you're probably wrong. But if you want to give it a go anyway, you can hire Paul for a consultation. He will be all yours for a whole entire hour. Schedule your Paulversation today at Permies.com/consult. Permies.com/consult.
There's some irony to that you basically assisted in building the early internet, and then in these times we're kind of feeding the internet to neural nets to train them. Do you think that on some level, whether conscious or subconscious, you were kind of predicting the future of what might be coming and preparing for that shift where humans may need a humble home and a big garden? Was that on your mind because of the work you did, or do you think they were just unrelated?
One of the things I really liked about creating Bananacom was the idea that millions of people who never talked to anybody could start to talk to other people. So I thought it was going to bring human beings together. And of course, here we are, and I think we blame the internet pretty thoroughly for isolating people. So people will have electronic relationships, but they might not have real relationships. So I guess I helped in that kind of destruction for it to exist. Did I think that I mean, things change. In fact, I've 100 different times I've heard from people that are angry because something's changing and they're going to be out of a job. And I'm thinking like, well, I wrote Bananacom. I was on top of the world for a little while, and then along came the internet. I did write a web browser. And then while I was wrapping it up and getting it ready to go out, Microsoft announced that they were going to give theirs away for free. And it's kind of like, how am I going to sell a web browser if everybody gets it for free? So I shelved it.
With many others, is my understanding. When Microsoft made that move, it killed a lot of other browsers. Is that fair to say?
I'm going to say maybe. But there were quite a few that were trying to get started back then. But in the end, I just didn't want to play anymore in that space. And so, and I just was flooded with people who were willing to pay me far too much money to come and work on their sexy projects. So it's like, okay, I'll take the money. And it was funny because it was like when Bananacom first started, and it was taking off like crazy. I had a 3-month span of time when I ignored all of it. I became so obsessed with gardening. I couldn't stop thinking about gardening. I read more than 100 gardening books, and I was just in the garden all day, every day. That's all I could think about. Fortunately, in Missoula, winter eventually comes along and like, oh yeah, I made that software. I should go do something with that.
As you became more and more obsessed with gardening and permaculture, can you define for us in your terms, what does that word even mean? What is permaculture?
Permaculture is a more symbiotic relationship with nature, so I can be even lazier.
I love it.
That's my definition.
Succinct.
Yeah.
Yep. So what were your earliest experiences with permaculture culture?
Permaculture culture?
The humans that believed the thing.
Oh. Wow. I know that when I moved on to acreage for the first time, I had never heard the word permaculture, and I was doing experiments, all kinds of experiments, and somebody came along and said, oh, what you're doing is called permaculture. And it's like, what's that? And so I started to read all the books, and that's when I first saw the Sepp Holzer movies. And it's like, yeah, baby, yeah. So I learned that a lot of the things I thought I had invented had already been invented. So no credit to me. I got very excited about it. I took my first PDC and loved it.
PDC being Permaculture Design Course.
Yes. And it's a 2-week event where I went there. It's a physical thing back then. They didn't have the online ones then. So it was a physical thing, and I went there. The people were just lovely. And my thinking was, I want to live like this class all the rest of my life. This is how I want to live every day, all the rest of my life. I want community. I want to share meals. I want talk about better gardens, better animal care, all of that stuff. And so that's what I've wanted to do ever since, and what I've worked towards. It was about, in fact, it was, taking that course was the line I drew. After that, I stopped doing software engineering. And so, and that was about the same time also that I created Permies.com.
Permies.com is where I first learned about rocket mass heaters. To the audience, if you haven't seen it, I made a video about my build of a rocket mass heater, which is a technology Paul Wheaton has been instrumental in promoting on Permies.com in particular. That's how we connected, thank goodness. I'm honored to be here. But how did you first learn about rocket mass heaters? What was that like?
I had a guy sitting at my kitchen table, a friend, telling me about rocket mass heaters. And I told him it's not possible. I trusted him, but the bastard was lying to me. And I was like, this can't be true. But. And I said, look, okay, it's so simple. If you have a bunch of sticks that are vertical and the bottoms of the sticks are on fire, the flame will go up the sticks. The house will fill with smoke. The whole design sucks. And he says, no, the fire burns sideways. A fire can't burn sideways. It's just not the way fire do. And he was insistent, and he says, look, I saw it with my own eyes. I felt it. I was there. You were not. I guess you had to be there. And so I went. And I went to an event that was attended by 5 instructors. They were kind of having their, I don't know, biennial gathering of rocket mass heater instructor dudes. And so I kind of felt like it was extra special. And I got to see the fire burn sideways. And then but because I could see it, I could, it's because the draft is so strong. The air gets sucked in. And it's like, I never would have imagined that the draft would be that strong, but it is. And then the mass holds the heat, and so I got to really have a visceral relationship with rocket mass heaters, many of them. They had many there, and I got to really experience them in their many, many flavors and hear people talk about what's better, what's worse, all that stuff. And then I had so many questions, and it was a powerful reaction. And I said, why don't more people know about this? And they said, well, whenever anybody comes by, we tell them. So I made some really shitty video with my shitty camera, which had only, it's like a camera where it's like the first camera for taking pictures that could now do video. And boy, the audio is so bad. But I took the video and I put it up on this new website called YouTube, and it's like because on the way before I tried to look it up on the internet, like, what is a rocket mass heater? Show me one. And there's nothing. Right. So it's like, okay, all right. So then I thought, there, I did that. I shared it. And now people will learn, and the world will go crazy about it, and I can just be a doofus that took a video one day, and that is my role, and I'm done. And instead, it kind of didn't go wild. And so and then I'm kind of like, why won't people do this? This changes everything. And why don't people jump on it, go crazy? Everybody builds it. Why not? Why? And so I don't know. I just did more and more. Then I bought this land, and we've built like 41 rockety contraptions. And I've hosted like the International Rocket Mass Heater Jamboree, 6 times, I think. And there's been so much stuff, and it's still not going wild. I mean, let me turn this question back onto you. Why? I mean, your video has is it 3 million views?
That sounds right. Yeah. I think so.
3 million people have seen that.
It's crazy.
3 million. Why isn't rocket mass heaters, why aren't people building them? Why aren't there 3 million new rocket mass heaters being built this year?
I think it's easier to watch than do, so I think, but in some ways I do think I definitely stood on your shoulders here. You put out the early information. I watched that YouTube video that you posted probably 10 years ago. Over that now, man, my goodness, 14 or 15. I mean, it was back then, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was 2009 that I took the video, and I think I put it right up.
I probably watched it in 2010, the year I bought my house, and started fantasizing about building. So, I mean, delayed reaction. Not everyone has one, but a lot of people have seen the concept now, and it's technically because of you. Because I watched your video, I built one because of you, and then I made a video while I built it, and now people have seen it. But I do think it's easier to watch than do. I think there's a huge driving force which I could just talk about way too long and annoy way too many people, but home ownership and the idea of affecting resale value paralyzes humanity.
Sure.
And if people, their primary nest egg or primary investment vehicle is their home, they don't feel able to touch it in any way that just might negatively impact resale value. And I'm in a fortunate or blessed state where I'm willing to not worry as much about that. I've just done crazy stuff and moved forward, and I think that does cause decision paralysis for a lot of suburbia, which is a lot of people, you know.
Well, you know, there's some things like this design in this building that I invented, and then there's some things where I came up with a modification. So for rocket mass heaters, I'm well known for the pebble style variation. And I think the pebble style variation has become very popular because it's so quick to build. But home resale value. So if you've got a rocket mass heater in there, a pebble style rocket mass heater in there, a pebble style rocket mass heater can be taken apart and loaded on a pickup in less than an hour. And so if you've got a home and you've got a pebble style rocket mass heater in it, it's less of a change to the house and more like an appliance. And so you can just roll it out and, you know, move it, take it somewhere else. In which case it doesn't change the value of your home. But I think here in Montana, a lot of people are freaking out, becoming very frustrated, very concerned, because the cost of electricity is way up. The cost of natural gas is way up. And every other form of heat that is available is way up. The only thing that's stayed the same is cordwood. If you're going to buy cordwood and have it delivered, it seems to be the same price as it's always been. But the other thing is that like right here at my house, there's trees out there, and for most homes in this part of Montana, you have a lot of trees. You know, like even an urban lot will have like 8 trees, and they shed branches through the year, and then you could just take those branches and throw them in a box, and that's all you need to heat your home all winter. So, I mean, people were paying $2,000 to $3,000 a year for heat, and now it looks like it's going to be closer to $8,000 a year for heat. And they don't have that kind of money. And a lot of them are already turning their thermostats way down. And they're very uncomfortable. And it's like I try to tell them about rocket mass heaters, but I don't know. I think it's the way, like if somebody tells me about a car that will run on water, I think that they look at rocket mass heaters the same way that the water cars are looked at. I think that they think it's a hoax. But I know that when I went to go look at rocket mass heaters for the first time, I was heating my home with wood, with a conventional wood stove. And I was heating with 6 cords of wood every winter. And about 7 years ago, I measured at my current home, which is about exactly the same size. I measured very carefully how much wood we burned, how much cordwood we burned to heat that home for the entire winter. And it was an especially cold winter, and I heated with 0.60 cords of wood.
So 90% reduction, right?
Correct. And then this winter, of course, is the new test, and we're trying to heat with just cardboard and papery garbages and any kind of woody garbages found lying on the ground. Anything, we're qualifying it by anything that will not stack in a cordwood stack. And so we're bringing that in and drying it and using that with cardboard to heat. So we'll end up heating the house for free with 0 cordwood for the entire winter.
Which is pretty incredible.
So I can't even remember what your question was.
Oh no, it's fine. I mean, you answered it. My mind's going to the place of, I know it can be frustrating that not more people have built it, but I think it's clear at least a lot of people have seen the concept now because of YouTube. If there's a second technology that you could get to a lot of eyeballs, what would that technology be?
So if rocket mass heaters, like everybody's adopted rocket mass heaters.
Right. After that, yeah.
Then what comes next? I want to say the Wafati. We're sitting in a Wafati right now.
What does Wafati mean?
I don't feel like we've tested it thoroughly enough yet. Okay. And so, but Wafati is this building style. I'm trying to make a building style that is less expensive to build when you pay for the labor than a stick-built home. All natural building at this time, when you pay for the labor, all natural building costs more than a conventional stick-built home. And so I want to try to come up with a natural building style that is cheaper and has a side bonus of using the heat from the summer to heat the building through the winter. The other side effect of that has been that we've experienced so far is that like this particular building, I believe it was a few summers ago, it got to 104 outside and it was 72 inside. And the thermal mass that's part of this structure was absorbing the heat for the winter, and the side effect is that this space becomes relatively cool. So, that was pretty awesome. I don't know how effective that would be in Texas.
Yeah, you got to have cool to begin with.
Well, you have some. It's like you would try to expel the heat from the summer in the winter, which would then chill, so to speak, your mass. And then when summer rolled around, then it was going to try to reabsorb heat again, which would keep the interior fairly cool. Yeah. But I feel like I need to test it more. I think hugelkultur will solve so much pollution. Oh, I know. I've got just the thing. I made something up, as I often do, because Mr. Rogers encouraged the land of make-believe. You can pretend. So I pretended a thing. And that would be the thing. I call it the automatic backyard food pump. And so when you grow your own food, the more traditional ways, even the permaculture ways, is like, okay, you're going to grow all this stuff. And you have to have a certain level of discipline to do it. And then you have to harvest it at the disciplinary time and then preserve it. You've got to make it so that you'll be able to eat it through the winter. And I think that I think a lot of people avoid growing their own food because of all those stresses. And so I've created something that has far less stress, like maybe 90% less stress, maybe 98% less stress. So I think I pointed out to you at some point, looky there, that's a sunchoke.
Stephen and I had the opportunity of going to a hugelkultur, and in 10 minutes we had enough food to feed 6 people, and it was just sitting there in the dirt, stored over winter, ready to go. Yeah,
and we've been doing that December, January, February, all winter long. And we've got several other crops that you can harvest all winter long. And we're going to experiment with more this upcoming growing season. But I kind of feel like when you have these crops that grow without care and spread without care and just make more and more and more food, hence automatic backyard food pump, then the stress of gardening, to have the discipline to do gardening, the knowledge, the discipline, the everything, that the volume knob on that is turned way down. And now whenever you're in the mood and you're hungry, there's a lot of food right there, more than you could possibly eat. And, go out and help yourself. I think that then when you grow these other garden foods, for whatever reason, it's a fun novelty. It's a little change, have a little extra these other kinds of foods during the winter because you had the discipline in the fall to harvest and preserve. And you had the discipline to plant and, whatever other disciplines you came up with. But you don't need as much.
Right, your staples are covered.
You don't need a pantry that's the size of a garage. That you could have a pantry that's like a tenth of that size or a 20th of that size, and that'll be fine. It's more like those foods are more like seasoning, more like a little change of pace. But the other food is far easier and doesn't demand your discipline, which I think demanding your discipline takes a little something out of you.
Yeah, it feels like work.
Yeah. Whereas, if you're sitting at home and you're feeling lazy and it's like the fridge is empty or whatever, and you're like, it's like, oh yeah, I can go and grab a bunch of stuff out of the garden, throw it into a crock pot, and have this amazing soup in hardly any time at all. Yeah. And it'll be like nothing. Easy.
Yeah. Well, for many reasons, I hope that idea spreads to at least as many eyeballs now as the rocket mass heater has. But
this podcast is continued in part 2.
In a world on the brink of social collapse, one website stands above the rest to fight back the zombie horde of corporate trolls. Permies.com. Take back control of your destiny and protect your loved ones from the toxic gick coming at you from all directions. Strap on your overalls and start building that bunker of abundance with the good vibes and friendly, helpful insight found at Permies.com.